Hey there. So, we are going to talk about just questions and answers. Yes, I'm going to pull some cards. Yes, I'm going to talk about some different things for different people who listen. But I'm going to say that maybe listen to the whole thing because it's just going to be a spiritual discussion. And even though it's going to feel a little bit one-sided, maybe it won't. For some people who are sending me the inquiries and questions they have in their mind, and then the talk should just, go to that direction. So this is a spiritual talk, meaning address it in a spiritual way. Send me your inquiries, send me your feedback, send me your thoughts in response to what I'm saying, and we'll do a discussion that way. But also, if you don't feel like it works that way for you, just feel free to comment. Feel free to email me some feedback or insights or questions you have in response to what I'm saying. My email is down in the description box, as well as a link to my website. If you'd like to book a personal session, you can do that there. I'm also going to feature my homemade deck. One of them. I have many homemade decks, but this one I'm selling. And you can get that through clicking on my website too. Clicking through to the shop from my website. But that's my handmade fair relating reflection oracle deck. Actually, I don't call it oracle. I just call it a reflection deck. And that is because the idea of using oracle, tarot, and divination tools is something that can be abused excuse me, or used to avoid owning our own power. And the reason why I've changed all my readings from pick a card to reflection, pick a reflection, is because one of the key things that I found necessary in healing myself from discomfort and suffering was to take responsibility and trust myself and pay attention to what is going on internally, which was something that I hadn't been doing, which was why I was in suffering. And I noticed that before I got to the point where I was doing that, I could easily use tarot, oracle, and divination tools to look for direction from outside of myself, which was really, in the end, it was helpful at first, and I'm not saying that it's not a useful tool, but in the end, it was something that I had to stop doing consciously because I recognized that it was a way for me to avoid taking responsibility and making my own decisions based on what I want, what I think, what I feel. And in order to fully learn to trust myself, I needed to do that. Okay? The pile of crystals here is a little off center and it's a little bothersome to me. I like something to be aesthetically pleasing. So I'm just messing with them a little to balance the screen out. It's a little better. Yes, it's a little off center, but we'll just go with it. First thing I want to talk about is grudges. I woke up thinking that I wanted to talk about grudges. Of course, no one's directly asked me to speak about grudges, but I have been witnessing the effects that some people that I know of are suffering, and I can see that it's because of the grudges. And, if they're not asking me, I can't tell them. But I'm going to just release the information that I have, the perspective that I have, which may or may not be helpful to them. If they're not asking me, it's not meant for them. But maybe it's meant for someone. Maybe that situation that I'm powerless to assist with is just there for me to notice so that I can explain my perspective on it for someone else that will be open or helped by what I have to share. And that is that life is really heavy when I hold grudges. Holding grudges, holding judgments, holding the idea that I know better than somebody else knows for themselves, it's really burdensome. And, I think one of the easiest things to justify for us in our culture is that we might know better than somebody else knows for themselves because we have more experience and more wisdom and we've been through that. And I want to say that that may be true, and it may be very accurate, and it may be that it's even difficult to watch somebody suffer through something that we know they could easily solve by doing it another way. And just like I can't solve a person's grudges because they haven't asked me, we can't solve other people's issues just because we know or we think we know better for them. And here's why that's really important. Here's a perspective, awareness, or an expanded awareness that may help us adjust to that understanding, which is, I've been studying astrology for many years. I have many, many, many more years to go because fortunately astrology is something that has a large learning curve and is forever expanding, and there's always more to know. So the reason that's fortunate for me is because I enjoy learning. And it's a topic that has not lost my interest in many years, and most topics do. So, with astrology, one thing that I've come to understand is every single chart is unique, every person is unique, even twins. Even twins that were born at the same moment could have the same exact energy and express it in different ways. Because as humans, we don't just express the energy from the birth chart. We're also utilizing energy from past lives we've lived. So, if twins are born at the same exact moment, they likely have different past lives from each other, which will be influencing the energy and how they use it. Okay? So energy, everything is energy. Sorry, I'm just... excuse me, sipping the last bit of slushiness of my iced coffee. And that's what it sounds like. Okay. So, everything is energy, and when we come to Earth, we're going to come in at a certain time, date, and location. And wherever the planets and asteroids are at the time, date, and location of our birth, that is the energy that sort of attaches to us as we come into Earth. And thereby it can be said that this would be like our lesson plan, or our karma, or what we're here to learn from. The energy we are here to experience is attached to us based on our time, date, and location of birth, and that begins at our first breath, and there's energy attaching to us and that we're coming in with even before that time. So it's not just the birth chart. That is just a portion. That's just a segment. Like, if you think of yourself as a Earth school student, maybe you could just say that's like the curriculum. But when you go to school, you'll probably learn a lot more than that, and you're working with a lot more than that of your basis and your foundation, right? So this energy works in many different ways, but it's unique for each person. Each person is experiencing something unique, is coming in at a certain angle, time, date, and location, and this affects the energy that they are working with. This affects the perspectives that they are open to. This affects the way that they will interpret whatever they experience. So for each person, it's different. And it's meant to be different. We are not meant to be the same. We are here as creators. there is a lesson plan. There's something that we want to learn before we freely create. We are working within the restraints, you could say, of certain energetics that have not fully been understood yet. And part of our job, you could say, is to understand our portion before we go on to create with the knowledge we've gained or with the wisdom we've gained from having had that experience. So each unique experience is important because the way we master energy is we experience all angles of it. We understand it from many different views. So if you look at a planet, let's just say the planet Saturn. If everyone gets to look through one angle, one lens of Saturn, then together as a humanity we get to master the energy of Saturn. Saturn's the timekeeper. I would say that this is exactly what we're doing on Earth right now, is we're working together as a humanity to all take a piece of our lens of Saturn and work together with what we've learned to master it as a humanity. We have to work together in order to do this. But a lot of people aren't knowing that because they don't understand what the bigger picture reveals about what we're doing here on Earth. They're still in that they're still in the space where they're surviving the energy that they've come into experience, which is also valuable, just as valuable space to be in, albeit sometimes much more painful and full of suffering. Okay, so it's important that we each have our own perspectives, and the idea that we don't, the idea that we all must see things the same way or all must agree, is actually one angle to look through. And once we've looked through that, we can see why that does or does not work for us, right? But people will work it as long as it's working for them. And it's not up to me to say that it shouldn't be working for them before they're done with it. So if I have already solved something about life, some sort of challenge that is presented in everyday life for a lot of humans, like holding grudges, if I've already solved that for myself and I come along and say, well, this is how you solve it, and I tell all the people and I expect them to solve it the way that I've decided it works to solve it. Well, what if they were meant to solve it a different way? What if some people can't even solve it the way I've solved it because my perspective was different, my experiences were different, the energy I was working with was different. Everything about my experience was not aligned and matched up exactly to what they experienced, so they can't even access what it is I am doing, because not all people will. Some people will. Some people, perhaps the cells in this community of cells we call humanity, the cells closest to me may or may not, depending on how the energy is functioning and working. Some energies attract, some energies repel. And so for us to go along and expect that every person utilize the solution that we have come to it is, in my opinion, a flawed premise, and will lend towards keeping us in suffering if we think that, because it's not the truth, and it's a limited view, and it lacks the fuller, bigger understanding, and it lacks freedom. And freedom from restriction and resistance is actually something that feels really good on Earth. So I believe it is what we're striving for. It's what I'm striving for anyhow. And maybe others are striving for different things on Earth, right? But my lesson plan lended toward me learning what it feels like to feel free. And in order to really appreciate feeling free, I first had to feel what it felt like to be in bondage, in restriction, inhibited, unable to flow freely in who I am, unable to express myself freely, unable to be free to solve things at my pace, in my way, to look at things and explore things with thoughts that had not been thought before, or had not been presented to me as acceptable, or had not been told to me as the way to do it. So I naturally had this inclination toward that, and the part of me that suffered, the miserable part of me that got depressed and wanted to die and was in pain physically, was the part of me that wouldn't allow me to do the exploration that I was so desperately wanting and needing. As a part of my being on Earth, it was my lesson plan to break free, to see things from a freer, bigger awareness, but not just light things that are easy to see freely, the down and dirty, gritty things, the things that are under the surface that nobody talks about, the taboos. And so when I look at it like that, when I look at my birth chart and I see those kind of things in there, it certainly does make sense to me that when I start talking about these things that normally in our culture we're told not to talk about openly, that some people get uncomfortable. Because when presented with this option to look at things differently, some people are very uncomfortable with that, because they know, maybe within themselves, that they're not done looking at it from the perspective they have. So they have to repel someone who is trying to present in a very powerful way another way to look at it. Whereas if I were to keep to myself based on that, then I feel very restricted and unhappy. So there has to be this respect, mutual respect of, first of all, people freely expressing themselves, but also people staying in their own perspective until it's time for them to grow from that and to grow in the direction that they deem is appropriate. So in order to do that, they have to be led from within. Because if we do look outside of ourselves for direction and authority and the right thing to do, then we are not being able to fulfill what our inner authority wants and how our true nature would express the energy that we're given. However, for the time that we are attempting to conform and do it like we were told and experience what it is to have an authoritative influence, that is also appropriate, because we may need to know what that's like before we experience the other in order to really appreciate it and understand all aspects of it and master it. All sides of an energy are going to be explored and understood before mastery of that topic is achieved. Now, we may not be here to master every energy that we have access to. Only we know that, right? That is driven from within, the inner urge. And if we are currently in the habit of looking outside of ourselves for an authority, as we were trained to do when we were brought up by parental figures who operated in that manner, who were repeating what was done to them, then we will not operate from that inner urge. Okay? So a lot of the programming that we experience before we get free to follow the inner urge has already been done on Earth. A lot of times by our parents. And so if you think about it, it's not about blaming or shaming or saying our parents were wrong for downloading us with these certain ways of operating. It's actually that they laid the foundation which allowed us to explore from. You know, they looked at all the angles they could from a certain perspective, passed it along to us. Now we get to take steps forward. It's a ladder of progression, you know. So if we're mastering things as a humanity, we don't step from the first rung on the ladder to the last one. You know, different people are going to be mastering and looking at different rungs along the ladder, maybe like passing the baton to each other in order to take it further, you know. Or there may be some people who want to master each rung themselves. Only they would know that from their inner urge. So in our parenting, one of the things that we're learning is that punishment and reward parenting and imprinting and downloading our children with the idea that they must conform, they must fit in the boxes, they must be socially acceptable, and they must do as they're told, and that they should work for reward, and that they will be punished if they don't do the right thing, that mistakes are not okay. We can now see the ways these things, when carried through into adulthood, don't work very well and cause a large portion of our populace to become depressed, addicted, anxious, suffering, traumatized, and possibly even suicidal. So from that space, there's this welcoming into a more free space where these things don't have to be carried on. We can break free out of depression, suffering, suicidal ideation, anxiety, etc. if we are meant to, and if we are ready to take back our control, surrender all the things we thought were true about the way to operate on Earth, and then start paying attention to our own inner urge. So as you start paying attention to your own inner urge, from my experience, I know that then I had to face all the things that made me not want to, that I was programmed with. I was programmed with, don't make a mistake because now you might be punished. Don't make a mistake, you might be ridiculed. Now, in order to learn and grow, mistakes are going to be part of it. So I have to be allowed to make mistakes, right? And also fitting in. If you don't fit in, then you don't have friends, and then you're lonely. If you don't fit in, then you are at risk of being, I guess, dead, because you don't have others to work with to solve bigger issues that face humans. When in actuality, when I am at this time and space on Earth, I am able to operate in a more independent manner without it threatening my life. My life is set up in such a way that I can pioneer a new way and have different thoughts and operate in a different manner. And not everybody will accept that and accept me in while doing that, but some will, because there has been enough progress in this direction of people being more open-minded and more accepting of things that don't conform than there had been in the past. And this is because people did it anyway. Because people were so strongly driven to take steps out of the box, that now it's easier for those that don't want to be in the box to step out. And I would guess that eventually not a lot of people are going to be in the same box, Like there's not going to be one box. Maybe there'll be groups of boxes, or maybe there won't be boxes at all. We'll see. So I feel like it's a really exciting time, and I think when we approach things from this bigger picture view, then we can start to see why it doesn't make sense to hold judgments or grudges against people. People are just learning. If someone has done something to us, okay, here's a whole nother thing, okay? Now we're going to step into something that is another barrier that we face when we start taking responsibility for ourselves and working from our inner urges, right? Now, the propensity to point fingers and shame and blame others for what ails us can stem from that punishment and reward parenting paradigm. Because children are downloaded from their environment, meaning we operate in the way that we learn others are operating in the surroundings that we are brought into. So if we have parental figures that are punishment and reward based, then they operate in such a manner that they're always looking outside of themselves to decide if something needs to be punished or rewarded. So as adults, we grow up and we look outside of ourselves to other people around us, and we decide, do they need to be punished or rewarded? And you can see how this could actually take up a lot of a person's time that they could be using to tend to themselves and what they want. But instead, they're programmed, they're living out that program. Now, the beauty in that is that we get to see ourselves as we do this. So we notice eventually, because the human brain is designed to be able to pick up patterns, we notice eventually that we always look and find somebody else to see this certain thing in. Oh, these humans do this, or they do that, or whatever it is, okay? So whatever it is that we're finding in others that needs to be called out or punished is something that is trying to get our attention. Otherwise, we wouldn't be noticing it all the time. And now, if we have noticed a pattern of always seeing that in another person, I'm going to invite us to utilize this certain tool that I've come to understand in order to find that the energy we're seeing outside of ourselves is actually inside of ourselves. Meaning, when I like to use the example of someone chewing gum. Say as a child I got punished for chewing gum because I went to bed with it and it got in my hair, and Mom didn't have a very good time getting gum out of my hair. Yes, that did really happen. No, my mom didn't punish me or make me think that chewing gum was bad for it, but yes, I had gum in my hair on more than one occasion, and I had real long hair down to my butt when I was like 5, so not real fun. So anyway, but just say that I then lodged a discouragement about people chewing gum in my operating system, and then I grew up as an adult, and I didn't think of that. I didn't think it was logical to judge people for chewing gum, so I didn't really, acknowledge it in my conscious mind. It was by now in my subconscious mind. And I didn't know why, but I felt annoyed anytime I saw someone chewing gum. And it would just kind of make me feel disgusted, or like they were doing something wrong, right? So, I thought that was funny when I just said wrong, right? So if I have this judgment against chewing gum lodged in me from childhood, and I don't know it, the natural human way is to then project that onto someone else. So I now see life through the lens of chewing gum is not good. I don't know it's in me. I don't know that judgment is lodged in me because of my own experience from childhood, because I've forgotten about it by now. So the lens lets me see it in someone else. And the way that I know that there's something lodged in me is that there's an uncomfortable feeling that arises. Because otherwise, if someone is, if someone is chewing on a toothpick and I don't feel any adverse feelings, and it doesn't bother me, and I have no feelings at all either way, it's neutral in me, then I know I don't have a judgment. I'm not projecting something onto the person with the toothpick. But because I have an uncomfortable feeling arise in a patterned manner, meaning every time I see somebody chewing gum, I feel this uncomfortable feeling, and I feel a sort of disgust towards them, or like they're doing something wrong or bad or risky, or like they won't be responsible with their gum and they won't dispose of it correctly, or whatever I'm feeling, that feeling is there to alert me that I have lodged in me something that is waiting to be more fully understood. And this is how it works with everything. So even the idea that to grow up as an adult that has been punished and rewarded, that I continue to look outside of myself for people to punish and reward, that is an idea that is waiting to be understood in me. So once I understand that, I'm just carrying on that idea of looking for people to punish and reward, then I can kind of take it within myself and realize this is within me. It's not that people need to be punished or rewarded by me. It's that I need to tend to the part of myself who has a misunderstanding about how to operate in life. Because surely, eventually, it makes you very unhappy when all you notice around you is people that need to be punished. Or you're always looking for people that need to be rewarded. I mean, it would be a practice that takes you fully away from what your internal urge is and what your own self desires to do and enjoy in life. So you can resolve that by first accepting that you have it. First, you have to acknowledge that I've been operating this way. I have had a judgment against people who chew gum, or I have had an operating system that looks for people to punish or reward. Okay, so once you acknowledge it, you validate it. Maybe look at your own life and why you have that. Like maybe you trace the gum situation and you remember right away. Or if you can't remember right away that you had gum, caught in your hair at one time, maybe you can just notice the feeling signature. So then you be present with it, accept it. It's like, okay, I feel this feeling. It feels uncomfortable. It feels like something bad's going to happen when that person's chewing gum. I'm going to be with this part of me that feels this. And you don't avoid it and you don't project it and make it their fault. You just be with that part of you. Accept it fully, that it exists. And then perhaps even like reparent yourself and love the part of you that feels it. It's like when, for example, if you did get gum caught in your hair and your mom got really mad that she had to now spend hours trying to get gum out of your hair, and she was annoyed and your hair was getting pulled as she was yanking you around to go get soap and water and peanut butter and whatever tactics she was going to use to try to get the gum out of your hair, and it was a very unpleasant experience because you knew you had disappointed and caused work for your mom, and she was making it very obvious that she wasn't very happy about it. This made you feel a certain way, and at the time it may have been so overwhelming to feel that feeling that you didn't let yourself feel it. You suppressed it. You denied it. You told yourself a story about what it was that wasn't accurate. Okay? And the reason why it's now lodged in you is because one of those things happened. It's because it's going to give you a chance in life to learn that at a time that you're more equipped to learn it. So now you're more equipped. Now you can be present with whatever that feeling was. So imagine yourself, a 5-year-old, gum's caught in your hair, mom's real angry, now you're getting your hair pulled. You're scared. You want mom's love and affection. You want her to be understanding. You want her to know it was just a mistake and that you'll do better next time. You want her to know that you made this mistake twice and you're sorry, you forgot, or you just really liked the gum, and you want that to be okay to feel. But you have to feel the scaredness, you have to feel the betrayal that you feel by your parental figure treating you in such a way. You have to feel the embarrassment or shame that may have been put on you for making the mistake again. So you let yourself feel it, and you be with the part of you that feels it, just like you wished that someone was there for you. Like if in an ideal world, now imagine mom is kind and not feeling overwhelmed by life and is able to be present with you through in a difficult situation, which may have happened in other situations, But so you reparent that part of you, and now that energy is balanced out and integrated in you, and you're a person who can see someone who's chewing gum and know that whatever happens, even if they get it caught in their hair, that it's going to be okay, because you've spent time feeling what it feels like when that happens. So you know they can too. You know that it's going to be all right. There is a solution for the issue, that they may never have an issue. You're not having an emotional or resistant charge playing out in your reality anymore. So you've just shifted your reality completely simply by being present with one of the energies that had been lodged in you for understanding. So you can apply this concept to all experiences that you have in a patterned way. Every experience where you've felt this before, you've thought this before, is a karmic loop, is an energy waiting to be understood, is something that you're there to experience many angles of, and when you have experienced it to the degree that it is understood by you enough, You can break free from it by being present with whatever feeling has lodged it in your body. And by doing this, now the person that chews gum, that kept showing up in your life, maybe they don't even chew gum anymore. Maybe they were just showing up in your life to chew the gum so that you could be reminded of this energy that needed your attention and love. Your reality literally shifts based on what energies you integrate into you and what energies you're here to experience. So once you integrate an energy fully, meaning learning all that you have to learn from it, it's not going to show up in a patterned way any longer. You will shift the reality that you live in because you are actually experiencing the energy of you in life. Every time, all the time. So when we have that idea that we should tell people what to do and how to solve things, do we have a parent that treated us that way? Do we have a parent that didn't want us to make mistakes and told us exactly how it should be done and got mad if we didn't? And now are we doing that to someone else? And is that a pattern that needs our love? Is that a pattern that we need to acknowledge and validate about ourselves and then accept the way we feel? Like how does it feel when dad tells you, do it this way, and you thought you should do it this other way? You were like, well, I had this idea that I was going to try it this way, and you really wanted to try it that way, but dad came along and said, no, do it this way. This is the way it's done. So there's a part of you stuck in your energy that didn't get to do it the way he wanted to. That said, okay, well, I guess so I don't get punished or yelled at or shamed, I'm going to have to do it the way dad wants, but now that means I have to abandon a part of me that is so curious to do it this other way. So that part of you stays in your energy body, curious to do it that other way, but now feels like they're wrong. Might even hide from you in your energy body, might even never want to be seen again. Feels so wrong and shamed. Well, that part eventually is going to come back up for you to be present with and for you to accept. And you're going to have to say, okay, well, how does it feel? Every time my boss tells me to do it a certain way, but I know there's another way that it could be done. How does it feel? It feels like I'm not being respected. It feels like I'm not important. It feels like nobody values the creativity that I have to offer in this position. This doesn't feel good. And so you be present with that feeling, like, okay, yeah, I understand. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good that no one is valuing my perspective and my ideas and my creativity, and I'm being stifled in this position. So once you're present with that part of you, right, now you've accepted that that's a part of you that needs an outlet. Now you understand, okay, yeah, I do have a need to be creative. I do have good ideas. Maybe I'll need to start my own business so that I can have a place to utilize these ideas. Or maybe I can utilize it in a hobby. Or maybe I can present in a report in a very organized manner to my boss what ideas I have. So you're no longer trying to avoid that feeling or feeling disempowered by that feeling. Because the first thing we feel when something like this happens in our childhood, with the examples of the gum and the example of being told to do it a certain way even though you had your own idea. These things happening in childhood, we are looking to our parents. We are trained to listen to them and do what they want. And we don't feel like we're powerful enough to do something different. So we really do have to do it their way, right? So the first feeling that comes up in these instances is a feeling of powerlessness. So you don't feel like you're powerful enough to be with the feelings of judgment against someone chewing gum. And you don't feel like you're powerful enough to be present with the feelings of having your ideas not valued. But you are when you are. When it's time, you will be ready. And it helps to have the knowledge of the ability to do so. And so that's why we're talking about this. We're making it possible. And we're also preparing you for the idea that the first feeling you have will be the same feeling that you had as a child, which is I'm powerless. I have to do it this way. I'm powerless. I can't change this feeling that's coming over me so strongly, so overwhelmingly and so painfully, and yet I have to survive it. So what am I going to do? I'm going to stuff it down. What am I going to do? I'm going to avoid it. What am I going to do? I'm going to see it outside of myself. What am I going to do? I'm going to be depressed and feel bad for myself. What am I going to do? I'm going to just pretend it's not there. What am I going to do? I'm going to get drunk so I don't have to feel it. So all of these kind of coping mechanisms that we adopt in order to survive these things, they just fall away once we don't need them anymore. So when you know you've been doing something to drown out emotions, whether it be take prescription medication or use alcohol or drugs or shopping or food, you can recognize that you're doing these things and want to stop them and not be able to stop them. But the reason is because there's a hidden benefit. You're using it for something. There's some reason it's serving you. So you have to look at the reason it's serving you first. But once the reason it's serving you is eliminated, is integrated, the coping mechanisms fall away. Another thing that happens is, with the example of the person who had been told not to do it the way they wanted to, that dad said, do it this way. And so their idea got suppressed and pushed to the back. Something that happens with humans is sometimes a coping mechanism is formed. So perhaps instead of suppressing or denying that feeling and just doing what dad wanted, maybe that child did what dad wanted, but decided that from there on out, they were never going to do what other people wanted. They were only going to do what they wanted. And that was going to be their coping mechanism, to always do what they wanted. So this person grows up into adulthood and doesn't get a job working for someone else. They start their own business. And they're only willing to do what they want. They're not willing to have an authority figure over them telling them what to do. This seems like a wonderful way to cope, and I'm sure that it is valuable for the people who adopt it that way. But there will be along the way hidden ways that it is not benefiting them, that there will be indications that it still needs to be an energy that's dealt with, because the intention we do something with matters. So if we do something with the intention of avoiding something else, so the reason that this person grows up and becomes an entrepreneur is because they're avoiding feeling that terrible feeling they felt when their ideas were dismissed, when they were told that they couldn't do it their way, they had to do it dad's way. That was a terrible feeling, the same feeling we talked about in the earlier example of the same thing. But in this case, they're doing something to avoid ever having to feel it. But because it's still lodged there, there will be other things where now this person who's an entrepreneur running their own business, they don't listen to their employees. Their employees have good ideas, which probably could make them a lot of money, but they won't listen to them. And so they're making other people feel the way that they were initially made to feel. So there are effects, even if there's an effective coping mechanism or a so-called effective coping mechanism adopted in order to cope with these energies that get lodged in us, there will be something happening in a pattern that will eventually be noticed to alert you to the idea that this is in your operating system. So this entrepreneur may not realize that they're making their employees feel like their ideas aren't valuable. May never realize it until they have a string of employees that are unhappy or complaining or quit, or the business comes to a standstill and it can't progress because this entrepreneur hasn't been able to collaborate with others because they're not able to see the blind spot in themselves, avoiding listening to other people's ideas now because they only have decided to operate in a way that values their own ideas. It's important to value our own ideas, but if we can do it from a place that isn't emotionally charged, trying to avoid feeling like our ideas aren't important, our results will be a lot more free, a lot more healthy, and a lot more respectful of others. You see? Okay, I feel like this has gone on for a while, so I'm going to wrap it up. We didn't pull any cards or anything like I planned. That's why I had this all set up here. Maybe we'll just pull one card before we go to try to like sum up. We'll sum up what we've been discussing here, and then we'll wrap this up. And I do encourage you to leave comments and feedback, and let me know what's going on with you. What kind of topics should we discuss next? What are the issues that you have with implementing any of the thoughts or ideas that I've presented here? Is there something you're facing that you'd like to have some help with that we can discuss here? You know, you can write in anonymously and we'll address the issue. If you aren't in a position to have a session with me or take one of the classes that I offer through my website. Okay, I'm just going to pull from the Starseed Oracle. I think the deck is by Rebecca Campbell, but don't hold me to that. It's a really cool deck, though. I wasn't liking it at first because the cards are matte, and it's really hard to shuffle them. But I'm getting better at them, and the cards are getting easier to shuffle. Yeah, that is better and that is easier than they used to be. It's just because I prefer to get my cards a different way, and this deck doesn't really allow it. Oh, there we go. We got, I'll just show you the card first. Star Brothers, Horus energy, protection, loyalty, safety, trust. Okay, so this is kind of lending towards the idea that I was talking about, where we are humanity, looking at certain energies from a lot of different angles, right? Like, and to understand that is to put ourselves in a level of protection, because now we're not in the war. The war starts when we start projecting onto others and we start respecting that others have a different point of view and that it may be valuable too. And trust. So as we have gone through life and ignored, suppressed, and denied certain aspects and certain things that we were feeling, there may be like a part of us that lost the ability to trust. Like if we don't trust other people, if you don't have an ability to trust other people, it is a reflective of an inability to trust self. And an inability to trust self can come from all the times that we've had to ignore what self, that inner urge wanted in favor of doing what was socially acceptable or what was expected of us by our parents or an institution or an authority that we were looking to. So we earn back our trust as we take responsibility for each of these things within ourselves. Anything we see outside there in the world that we're having a charged response to is something that we can tend to within ourselves. And as we do it more and more, we earn back our own trust because we show ourselves that we can do it. We feel more safe. We know we have our own back. And this shows ourselves that we are loyal to ourselves, that we are no longer putting an allegiance with conformity or outside authority above our allegiance to our own inner urge, our own self, and to best use the energy that we are afforded in this incarnation at this time, the energy that we are meant to explore from all of the different angles. And as a member of this humanity amongst our star brothers, who are all here doing the same thing from their own perspective, it is our duty to do so. And it is our pleasure to do so. And it is our privilege to do so. And I truly do believe that as I've cleared my programming that was keeping me in suffering, and I've started to make sure that I'm respecting myself and filling up my own cup and giving myself what I need and not operating in the old ways that I had come into, I feel like life is such a gift, and I feel like it's this beautiful place to create, and I've been given a certain set of experiences to gain wisdom from in this lifetime, and now with that wisdom gained, I'm able to be this free roaming creator, doing what I will with what I know, and open to learn more, not stuck, really willing to explore and let myself see where we want to go. And it just makes life so much more pleasurable and exciting and happy. And of course, there are times when I see people around me in suffering, but I also know that they are learning something from that experience, and if they need my help, they will ask me. If they are open to what I have to share, they will ask me. And that's the way it works with me in particular, and I don't know that it works that way for other people. Maybe other people can offer help before they're asked, and it works well for them. But in my experience, the way my energy works, I just know that I have to wait until people ask me in order for me to provide effective solutions and informations and information for them to reflect on. And so by doing pick-a-cards and offering spiritual discussions like this, it just lets people know that I am here, and I do enjoy doing this. So it's okay to ask me. There is like, I think like I experienced earlier on, so I'm starting to explore a bigger understanding of the concept now of being intimidated by others who appear to know more. But I believe that can only happen in the paradigm of that punishment and reward, where we think that we could be punished for not knowing or not doing the right thing or not fitting in or any of that. And I just got to say that where I am, that doesn't exist. I know that I have something to learn from every single person. Even if they're coming to me to ask me for assistance or reflection or some advice or what I think, I know that I'm going to learn something from them. I know that I am amongst a humanity of equals, and that we all have something that we are specializing in and that we know more about. And we all have weaknesses too. And I have them, and I'm not perfect, and I'm not trying to be, and I'm just trying to be good with not being perfect, and also be good with the fact that other people may expect me to be perfect, may whisper and gossip if I'm not perfect, and that's okay too. It's all good, because whatever perspective they're exploring is theirs to explore. I've already explored all that. I already understand the value in having that perspective at one point. And it is that it's so freeing not to. So I just hold the space for them to have that someday too, if they're meant to. So yeah, thank you for participating. Thank you for listening. Thank you for spending your time with me. And thank you for any feedback that you care to offer. I am really open to it and welcoming of it. And perhaps we'll see you in a future one. Bye now.